Hello and welcome to the USA Rugby Clubhouse. We are coming to the last, 3 games of the season now, Mikey. I'm joined by Mikey Petrie, Mr. America himself. He's one of your anchors. I'm Ben Foden. Here, as usual, to talk about all things MLR, brought to you by therugbyshop.com for all your rugby apparel needs. Mikey, let's jump straight into it. Interesting.
You want to talk about your try? Is that what we're talking about first? The Ben Foden try? Was that?
I genuinely nearly broke my leg.
I saw that. I was worried.
All that Quinny needs to do is just draw and pass the ball, and I'd have walked it in. And he tries to bump the guy off and then offloads, and I get tackled. And my leg got in a weird place. And my ankle, it was just the bone, and I just got a lot of pressure through the bone. And I honestly, luckily there was no snap or break or anything, so I was all right. But I was like, Jesus, I got lucky.
Good thing you're still nimble, man. Good thing you're still nimble, and you just made it through like Gumby. Like flexed your way in like Gumby, right over the line. It was so good.
Well, the other thing is I had to watch Benny Benassa run 80 yards. I was like, how is he doing that? He's got
flying. He was absolutely
I'm supposed to be doing stuff like that, and he was flying. Yeah, I was like, damn it, why can't I score a try like that?
Because as we'll find out later in the show, Ben, you don't like to run, right? Didn't that come up when we were talking about that? Despite the fact that you're a fullback, a wing, and a sevens player, running is not really your thing, as far as you self-proclaimed, at least. Anyway.
self-proclaimed. Run fast for a short amount of time. What did you think of the game, Mikey, watching the Rooney-Toronto game? Because I tell you, as a player, obviously Toronto are going through heaps of problems. And, they lost a lot of players. Rumble wasn't playing. Lesage wasn't playing. They had a lot of guys missing from their squad. Mires wasn't playing. They had a few guys pull out at the kickoff. It should have been a game that we won and won well. And it felt a little bit frustrating, especially the second half was bloody awful, if I'm being completely honest. We couldn't couldn't get rid of the ball from our own sort of line, and we were sort of playing squeaky bum time in the last 10 minutes, just trying to get the game finished and done. But what did it look like from the armchair back in Brooklyn?
Well, it looked better than the first time you played Toronto. So the silver lining in any of this, it looked substantially like a 180 from that. So that's at least a step in the right direction. But it was okay. I mean, I think that you hit the nail on the head with everything you said, right? That it was just one of those games where you probably should have on paper, based on recent performances, won that one a little bit easier than you did.
Yeah.
But as is your typical MO with the New York squad, you like to make things interesting, and not quite as interesting as the folks in Utah, but definitely make it interesting and keep people at least on the edge of their seats. But yeah, some struggles there in terms of like you said, exiting late in the game. But again, you guys have some injuries too, right? Like I mean, you had both of your veteran leaders out, your veteran captains out, and Dylan Fawcett and Andy Ellis, both unable to play. So that's not something to be taken lightly either. And you said Toronto's got a lot of people leaving, but as do you. You're on the cusp of, I think, half of your forward pack almost leaving. Is that right? Like,
yeah, almost. We lost. We're going to lose Wilton, Hanko, Nate Breakley, Savetta, and then Quinn's gone as well. So yeah, it's a good handful of people.
Yeah, so that's four of your forwards there.
Four of our starting pack. Yeah,
right. That's a lot of people. And then Quinn's been a regular in your starting rotation, whether he's in the midfield or on the wing.
Yeah.
And then add the injury crisis that you've been having up in New York to that, and I think for sure that there's got to be some of that within the player's psyche of not that you've looked past Toronto, but oh man, we've got a lot of work to do here.
Yeah,
and
seems to me the Kiwi boys just fancy the weekend off. Andy Ellis, Dan Hollinshead, Cara Pride. It's like, nah, you know what? The only true one is Fussy. Fussy's the only one. Week in, week out, they roll Fussy out. He could be in a coma and they'd still roll him out.
I won't want to be you tomorrow in the locker room when you show up to practice and everybody's listening to the show and they've been like, "What was that you said on the show? What did you have to say?" All right, yeah, okay.
But the job was done. We got 5 points. That's what we needed to move on. So we're in a position that we like the look of. Our friends down the road, though, New England, Boston, obviously Boston and New York don't have a great past relationship in sports, but we were hoping that they would do a job for us against NOLA. First loss at home for New England. Although I saw they announced they're moving anyway, so maybe they're moving. And they're like, oh, we're not bothered about this place. We're leaving. So yeah, Nola managed to get the win, 17 points to 9. Only 4 points though, so they drop a little bit further behind. I think they're 4 points behind us now, and we have a game in hand on them as well. Is that right? No, we're 4 points ahead of them. Same. Atlanta are 5 points ahead of us, and we have a game in hand against Atlanta. So it's still all
New England this weekend. You got New England coming up this weekend, but in both conferences, those top three have definitely separated from the pack. So there's a clear top half of 1, 2, 3 and bottom half of 4, 5, 6 in both leagues of who actually has a realistic shot at the playoffs right now. And Nola hanging on for dear life, I think, just really just nipping at your heels the whole way through this. And so no room for any slip ups, Ben. You guys have to win and win out these last few games.
We do. Yeah. And it's interesting you say that as well, because it's 3-3 really. If you look at it, New York, NOLA and Atlanta in the East, LA, Utah and Austin in the West. And so Utah played Houston. Oh, did you see that? Oh, did you see this clip?
Yes. Yeah. Who hasn't seen that? And I've read a lot of the comments, and I'm curious to see where
very interesting. And you know what? I kind of liked it as well, because I don't like it was the language the guy used and the way it was thrown out, and you don't hear that very often in rugby. And fair play to Luke for sort of saying, you know what, sir, I'm sort of with you. Yeah, send him to the bin for 10 minutes because he can't be speaking to you like that. And you know, everyone talks about sort of core values and stuff and things that are instilled in you from playing rugby as kids and stuff. For anyone who hasn't seen the clip, obviously it was Houston were playing Utah, and one of the Houston players shouted a swear word at the referee. One more in just angst, but it was sort of directed towards the referee, and the captain of Houston suggested to the referee that he should send him to the bin for 10 minutes. I don't think he did.
Well, hold on, because this is where the controversy is too, right? Yeah. So the referee was the one who acknowledged that the profane language was used. So the captain didn't sort of sell out his teammate, right? And I think that I've seen that a lot on social media, was this idea of that it was the captain's fault. How could the captain sell out his teammate? Like, I think it's very clear that didn't happen.
The referee said it to him first, and he said if he did, then you should. Yeah.
Scott Green was the referee, brought the captain over and said, look, that type of language is unacceptable. And I'm not putting words in his mouth. I can't remember the exact quote of what referee Scott Green said. And he said, if it happens again, I'm going to send him off. Right. Like, and the response was, well, just send him off now. And it's been a big source of controversy. I've seen it on Rugby Pass. I've seen it on the MLR website. I mean, it's viewed however many dozens of thousands of times, and everybody's throwing their tidbits in about it. And I'm glad you're sort of on that same page, because I'm with you. I'm a purist in terms of core values of the game. And I think that, granted, he lost his cool, right? Like, and everyone does, and that happens sometimes. But when that happens, right, it's at the expense of your team sometimes, and you do the right thing, right? And the captain, I think, sort of took that position of that's not okay. That's not what our game is about.
That's what his team's about. Yeah,
right. Exactly. That's not what our team is about. I don't want that to be a reflection of who we are.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that was, kudos to them and really well played. I thought.
I think so as well. And it's done in the spirit of the game. Listen, if the referee had turned around and sent him off, it would have been a bit like, oh, okay. But for him to bring him in, have a word with him, and see, what I'd like to have seen is him call the player in, and the player say, I apologize. I know that's not part of the game, and I'm very sorry, and I'll watch it from now on. And he didn't he sort of said it and walked away. And so the captain was sort of there, and he sort of said, yeah, listen, we don't stand for that either. We don't want it in our game. We don't want it in our game because, we talk about core values that we're trying to instill in kids and fair play in rugby and having that competitive edge, but, treading the line, but never crossing it. It's very important. And I think that was a good message for the league sent across, and fair play to, the way that the Luke Bachon handled it, I felt.
Yeah, it's a good message for teammates too, right? Like, from a teammate perspective, I'm not going to cover for you in those situations, right? You made a mistake, and now we suffer as a result of it. I'm not going to sit here and pretend it didn't happen or try to get you out of jail free sort of thing. Like, it happened, and we pay the consequences and we move on and we deal with it, right? And I agree that I maybe would have liked to have seen a more communal effort to address it. right? With the captain, the player, and the referee, because I do think that that is also in the spirit of the game, like working out those sorts of instances. But that's okay. I mean, I'm glad you brought that up, because I thought that was interesting. I thought that was a really interesting little clip that's been thrown around on social media all weekend.
Yeah, and it was probably the most interesting thing in the game, because obviously Utah won 24-5 and Houston, so Utah got what they needed from the game. 5 points, moved on.
No surprise. No surprise there.
Houston had a few glimpses. They've got a winger who's looking pretty sharp, haven't they? Is there a Polynesian guy on the wing? I don't even know. He could even be American. He's a new guy who's got the start now, and he's playing well. He's got quite a weird name.
I'm sorry, Ben. I'm drawing a blank on that.
He's got a unique name, and I'll find it out, and I'll tell you what it is next week, because he's quite an exciting player, an exciting prospect for Houston going forward. Anyway, on to the next game: Atlanta versus DC. Atlanta were home.
Right.
It was bloody hot there as well in Atlanta. And it started to rain when they played, so I felt a bit jealous. But DC, I think DC know that their sort of season's over. Atlanta is still rolling hot. They're a very informed team at the moment. I think they've only come and stuck against us in the last 3 or 4 weeks, and otherwise they've been beating everyone. So Atlanta are looking pretty hot in this East Coast. They've just got a good squad of players.
Yeah.
I think that if it does fall down to Atlanta, New York, it'll be a very physical and hard-fought contest to see.
It'll be a good one. I mean, both of your games in the regular season were good as well. I think that's the one that, with all due respect to Nola, I think that's the one that everyone wants to see as well. The players, the fans. I think that that's a good one. I think it's a really good storyline as well. Both of you have been ones to take down Los Angeles from the East Coast. You mentioned the weather down in Atlanta.
Yeah.
I have worked a number of summer rugby camps down at Life University, and that weather in Atlanta in the summertime at Life is no joke. That heat is brutal. I don't envy you guys. And that weather, when the storms come through midday, that afternoon rain, it comes in hot, and it's really aggressive. It is really aggressive.
We could have done with my feet on fire. My feet were on fire. Anyway, obviously the other game, San Diego versus Austin. I might as well have dug the grave for San Diego, thrown them in there by saying they were my black horse. Dead and dusted San Diego now. Austin looked good. I think Austin looked good. I think that the only way they're going to creep in is if Utah slip up, because I think they are
agreed
5 points behind. But I think Austin are a good side. I think that I don't think they're going to lose another game. I think they're going to put the pressure on Utah to win. Utah seem to be doing pretty well at sort of seeing games out and winning in the last play. So it'll be interesting. I think both, but we mentioned Atlanta and New York in the final. NOLA are good. NOLA are a very good side. They're winning the games they need to. They're putting the pressure on New York. They've got a tough run in because they have 3 away games, and it could come down to the last game against Rooney in the last game of the season. So
I actually think that, and I mentioned that the matchup people want to see is New York Atlanta, and I although yes, I think that it would have been really cool when you think about those top 3 teams to see 2 and 3 play each other in almost a quarterfinal.
Mm-hmm.
And then the top seed gets the bye to the semifinal. And then because those matchups between what would likely be Utah and Austin on one side, and then New York and NOLA on the other side, those would be really good games. Both those would be really, really good games.
But then we could play NOLA the last game of the season, then play them again.
And that's basically the quarterfinal, isn't it? Right?
Exactly. Like that. It's basically going to be a quarterfinal anyway, the way it is.
Right.
Yes, in Seattle, we've got Matt Turner coming on later on. Honestly, they are the most frustrating team to watch, because I know I was like, I'm going to go Seattle and pull a result out of, and obviously I think it was 26-0 by half time. Seattle did come back in the second half. LA rested a few guys, had a few injuries and stuff. Billy Meeks was awesome again, though, watching him play in the centers. But Seattle is so frustrating to watch. Like, oh God, if I was a fan, I'd be so annoyed at that team. They get to the 22 a number of times. They get held up 3 or 4 times. They are banging on the door, and then suddenly they just turn the ball over. They kick a penalty and they run 90 meters and score a try at the other end. they are a good team. You can see that Seattle are a good team, but they're just one of those teams who find ways of losing games, and it's so frustrating. But they're building, and we're going to hear from Matt Turner about what's happened over the from day dot when they started and they won back-to-back champions to where they are now, and the transition that they're all going through, and what's tough about being involved in a franchise in this league, because there are a lot of things to it, a lot of aspects to it.
But that's that mental side of the game. When you've only won one game all season, and you're knocking on the door and it doesn't work out, you almost get there and expect like it's not going to work out.
Yeah,
right? That's you almost have that mental roadblock yourself in front of you. It's self-imposed. Yeah, and it's a difficult one to get out of. It's like in baseball when you're in a slump hitting. I mean, it's a difficult thing to get yourself out of. And
it certainly is.
Hi, my name is Matty Turner. I play for the Seattle Seahawks, and you're on the USA Rugby Clubhouse.
Ben, it is my pleasure to welcome among us the only person who has won an MLR championship to date, and not one but two Major League Rugby championships. He's played against the Lions. He's played England Sevens. He is one of the most accomplished players in Major League Rugby right now. It's been exciting watching him play. I know he caused all sorts of problems for us in the back three for Seattle when we played him a couple years back, and he's still up to no good in Seattle. Matt Turner, welcome to the USA Rugby Clubhouse.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. It's great to be on the show.
Good to see you, Matty. Fellow back threer, holding on for dear life with fingertips, just like myself. Let's start with a real basic question for you, because obviously there's a little tinge of a South African accent to your dialect. And obviously you mentioned you played for England. You're obviously playing in Seattle. You've been there for a while now. Talk us through your rugby journey. Where did it all start for you?
All started, obviously, growing up in South Africa, you start really young there, like 9 years old, started playing, obviously, through age groups, but I only really started playing real rugby, as I call it, sort of my last year at school, which is at Bishops, which is known for its running rugby. Sort of from there, kicked on to Western Province Rugby Institute. We call ourselves the test run pilots for the Western Province Rugby. We all got thrown into like Diggs's in the middle of a student town in Stellenbosch, which ended up being more partying than rugby. And then sort of through that system, I got invited to play Province 21s. Obviously, from there, UCT, got into play about 1 year of Varsity Cup, and then I actually played for the SA students against GB in a sevens tournament in Spain, in Cordoba. And at the time, the physio was the England Sevens physio, Brett Davison. Yeah. And from there, he found out I had a British passport, and within 4 months of finding that out, I was on a plane to the UK, sort of half signed by the RFU and half signed by Bristol, back in the last year of the Prem. And yeah, from then I just, after 2 years at Bristol, England started saying, hey, should we go full time? When that opportunity came on to be a full-time sevens player, to me, it made sense because my circumstances was I was allowed to live in South Africa, fly over for 2 weeks, train, and then go to a tournament, sorry. Yeah. And for the lifestyle that I was living, I thought, hey, why not give that a crack? It's kind of pro, but not pro. I did that for a couple of years, and then sort of ended up at the sevens, kind of wandered away from rugby, got into a little bit of coaching, coached Sri Lanka at the Asia Sevens. And then I actually stopped playing rugby and kind of pulled myself away from it. And through connections of playing for England and meeting other USA boys, Shalom Suniola, etc., at Adibus, they messaged me saying, hey, there's a league starting here. Would you be interested? And I was like, well, I like a challenge. I like different things. I didn't really know what to expect when I got offered here. And I just thought, hey, if I say no to this might be the chance that American rugby takes off. And, since 2017, I've loved it.
What a world sevens opens up, huh, Foden? And that's how you got your start, right? With sevens, right, Ben? You were an England sevens guy as well back in the day.
Literally, I think Matt, you jumped in literally as I jumped out. I think you did the last sort of semi-professional, and then you were the first ever like professional era of sevens. So I think we literally, like, I think I just literally finished and then Matt jumped in. So he probably took over my empty shoes.
Yeah, just a shirt size smaller though, right?
Yeah.
But a pace faster, Matt. But a pace faster. Don't worry about that one. That's all right.
Yeah, Matt's always been like a very interesting guy to follow in terms of his rugby journey, because I did pay attention to you playing sevens, because you were a hell of a sevens player, Matty. I thought that you were really class, and sort of that generation that brought through the likes of, you know, Dan Norton and Tom Mitchell and players like that came just like, well, during you and after you. But I thought that you sort of like were the caliber of sevens player they were looking for, especially since like the guys like Simon Amor and Ben Gollings, who used to do it full time.
Yeah.
And they sort of missed having those sort of guys. And I thought you were the first one to sort of step into those shoes and really, like, you know, be an out and out sevens player and really have the sevens caliber. Because what position you used to play? You used to play like 9, 10. You used to do it all, really, didn't you?
Yeah, I played 9 to center. I played a few on the wing, but it wasn't my favorite because one, I don't like running a lot.
How is that possible? Both of you guys are sevens guys, and you both sit here and you'll say, I don't like running. That is the single most running of any sport I've ever seen. Sevens.
Yeah, I think the way I always told boys about sevens is you just got to do just enough. You know, you know, don't be that guy that breaks the line and sprints all the way to under the post, right? Save that energy. And if you know you got a guy who's just as fast or faster than you around you, give him the ball, make him work.
I love it. And so obviously, you know, you came into the Seattle setup over here in America, and you were quite key in terms of like them building their team. There's a few guys that have been around squads. You look at like Sam Windsor at Houston, you know, Petrie when New York started off. You were sort of very much the sort of, you know, they don't have marquee signings, but in essence, the marquee signing at Seattle. And they sort of built the team around you. And I know that speaking to some of your guys and speaking to you, in the first couple of years, it was very player driven, your like coaching and the culture that you led. Talk to us a bit about the success that you had with that and why you think it was so successful in those opening 2 years.
Yeah, obviously we you know, year 1 and 2, we had a few issues with bringing in coaches because of visas. And, you know, the reason I think it worked is year 1 and 2 was semi-pro rugby, personally. I think you could get away with, you know, and that's cross-board. That's from ownership, how, you know, teams were getting run. They were getting run as semi-pros and hobby teams, from the people on the field, the refs, semi-pro refs, right? We still, you know, as a player, we'll always complain that they're not good enough. And never look at ourselves.
I'll do that till I die, Matty Turner.
Yeah, you know, we'll never look at ourselves and say, maybe we were wrong this time. And as you said, we never will. But yeah, I think for us, that helped us build our culture pretty quick, right? We were doing all the video, we were building out the program ourselves. And I think once you are committed deeper than what's on field, you build that culture that you can take onto the field. And again, we were lucky. We had, you know, Seattle's known for having good rugby community. Mm-hmm. You know, we had Shalom, you know, we had all the old American boys that were around. Guys that weren't involved and weren't playing still, the Kev Swerins, the Miles Craigwells, all the guys that have been involved in American rugby and get it. And they helped us with the off-field culture as well. So that was sort of why I felt we were successful in year 1 and 2. And, you know, as you can probably attest to, the league's completely changed since back then.
Yeah, it definitely has. But one thing that was also stuck out whenever anyone went to play at Seattle is that you always had a big crowd. You always packed the stadium. They talk about the 16th man, and you know, playing during COVID there's nothing more apparent to me anyway from playing professional rugby for a long time than when you run out and there's no noise and there's no crowd and you're a bit like, ugh, and you're all pumped up for the game and then there's no one watching it. And so do you reckon that helped as well, that you establish yourself with a big fan basis and so when you had your home fixtures, you know, there's lots of noise, brought the energy, that 16th man that everyone talks about. Did that play a part too?
Yeah, I think massively. I think that's sort of been our difference this year, is we've relied on that in the past. You know, all the close games that we've had, with teams this season. You know, back in the day, we would have turned them over and found a way to win them. I think that's been a big difference. There's a lot of guys in our team that get fueled by external motivations. So I think that I do think that is a big part of the Seattle franchise is the fans, right? They are diehard. Like I thought, like living in Bristol and Bristolians following rugby, starting Bristol the whole time and Bab at people, but these people are next level.
First of all, Bristol has to be one of my all-time favorite places. I loved visiting there in the UK for sure. Loved visiting there. A friend of mine that played there for a little bit, Robbie Shaw, and we used to go and stay with him for a bit. And it was a nice getaway from Manchester and Sale. Then it was like go down to Bristol and hang out for a little while. It was amazing. Not to backpedal too much, but going back to your story about how your rugby pipeline sort of, two things stood out to me. One, I guess the lesson in when you play, you never know who's watching sort of thing and what sorts of opportunities can come up from it. And when you take advantage of an opportunity, like you said, you play for South Africa schools. And next thing you know, you meet a physio who introduces you to someone in England, and then you're playing for England a couple of months later, right? Like that's such an important lesson for so many of the kids that are out there about taking advantage of opportunities and making sure that when you get them, you always put your best foot forward because you never know, right? And like that opened a world of opportunity for you. So that's awesome. But one of those opportunities, I think, aside from coming to America and coming to Seattle, that stood out for me was coaching in Sri Lanka. What is that like? Because that is just such a foreign concept to me of rugby in that part of the world. What is that experience like? What's it like over there?
I mean, that was amazing, right? I lived there for 18 months. Again, that happened. I played in that Super Sevens tournament that was getting played as run by the President's Sons in 2012 and 2013. And again, I stayed in contact with them. I stayed in contact with the sports minister in Sri Lanka, and he offered me the role. Just randomly fired me a text message saying, "Hey, what are you up to?" And I said, "To be honest, not much." And again, 3 months later, I'm living in Sri Lanka in a beautiful beach resort, just coaching Sri Lanka, right? And as it's one of their main sports, obviously cricket is completely outweighs it, but their second main sport is rugby. And there's a massive school program there. They get 5,000, 6,000 people at school games. And obviously being in Sri Lanka, it's a beautiful place. And for me, it was an opportunity to live in another part of the world, to give back to sevens, untraditional way, not just going into an academy and coaching English kids or South African kids. It was a way of actually getting to the roots of lower tier countries, but also see a new culture and learn as grow as a person personally. I think that's a massive part of opportunities for people, is not just the sporting side, but is to learn more about yourself as a person.
That's awesome. That's so cool. I mean, I've never visited that part of the world, but I've heard so many tremendous things. And so much of what I hear is the connection through sevens. So how does that, we've heard a lot from people that have played all over the world and about pathways and systems. So like in Sri Lanka, just because I'm curious now, you said that they have a really strong presence in the school system. So what's the pathway look like there? Are you just going to school games and picking out kids and saying, "Hey, come play for Sri Lanka," or is there, because there's no professional league, right? There's nothing. Is there a structure?
Well, there is. So there is a professional league.
Okay.
There's a professional club league, right? So what you do is it's kind of like a very dialed down version of the Japanese league. So you go work for a company and then they get you a job and you work for the club. In the past, they had foreigners playing there. And now at the moment, obviously there's no rugby going on, but the previous 2 years, there was no foreigners allowed to play within the league, because there's one club called Kandy Rugby Club, which is actually owned by one of the, I think he's still a telecoms, what's his name, minister of the country. And he would just buy all the best players, right? And he buys all the best local players because he can. Yeah. So, I mean, there's really good club rugby. Again, they get more fans than we do at MLR, right? They still do. And you go to one of those games and that's wild, right? Sri Lankan people like to party. There's a lot of dancing, not a lot of watching of rugby. But yeah, there's that league. So what happens is kids get picked up straight out of school, they get picked to the clubs, and then we kind of get free reign if the clubs allow their top players to play for us, right? So it's the same issue. If they're paying a guy too much, they don't want him to get injured playing for the national team, so they won't release him. But that's kind of the pathway to the national sevens, is you play a club which is more important than the country somehow. And yeah, that's how we get to pick the guys. And we obviously play in the Asia Sevens, where we go Hong Kong. We have one in Sri Lanka. We've done Thailand. We did the Olympic qualifier, the previous one. We go to, where else are the ones we went to? Like South Korea. So there's 4 or 5 of them every year. So it's pretty good gig again. As you said, it's a part of the world where you don't normally go travel, right? You don't find yourself going to South Korea. It's not really high on the list of most people's stuff. So
definitely not to play rugby anyway.
Yeah, or
not a rugby context. Right?
Yeah, or the East Coast of China. It's not like, oh, I'd really love to go to the Chinese coast. I've actually never heard anyone say that. But you find yourself in these weird, these weird. I say weird for us because I'm Western. Places around the world where you walk down to the buffet and there's chicken feet for breakfast, and you're like, well, this is probably not going to end up on my plates. And then end of the last night, all the Sri Lankan boys are like, well, you got to have one, and you're forced to have one.
Yeah. As we sit here, I'm looking at Ben, and Ben's eyes have been lighting up.
I know, right?
I see Ben. This is your transition out now, right? Like he's gonna go coach Sri Lanka Sevens team or something.
No, the light bulb went off when he said, "Oh, when they pay them so much money that they don't get released." I was like, "How much are they paying these guys?" And I'm like, "I don't pay foreigners. How do I get a Sri Lankan passport?" No.
So Matt, let's take. Okay, so it sounds like they have a better setup, maybe, or a following at least. Than say the MLR, right? Because they're a bit more established. They have a really good presence in their own right within their own nation. I mean, it's not like, as far as I think, the rest of the world's probably not watching Sri Lankan professional rugby the way that MLR hopes that the rest of the world will watch MLR professional rugby, right? Like it's a different sort of business model, I would think. But if you were to take the standard of rugby there and you take the top teams in the Sri Lankan league and dump them into MLR, how would they do?
They'll be with us down the bottom.
All right, fair enough. I'm just curious, right? Because good following.
The difference with the Sri Lanka league is the genetics, right? You've got a lot of fast kids. There's a lot of fast guys. There's not many guys over like 6'3". There's not big guys, so it's they would struggle physically. If it was a 200-minute game, they'd still be running full pace and we'd all be exhausted. But it's not. That's
this is you, man. This is it. This is you. This is last year on your contract in New York. Yeah. Big money in Sri Lanka. Not a lot of contact. Not big people. Not physical.
The amount of people that have said, "Oh, there's professional leagues in like Russia, and now obviously in Sri Lanka, and obviously there's one in Japan." And I keep having conversations with people, and these leagues and professionalism and like rugby just keeps popping up in the weirdest places. I'm like, what the hell? Like maybe I should try and just
I would suggest Sri Lanka over Russia, or what you're going to get in Russia. You might not come back. One of the pros of Sri Lanka is the Maldives is a half-an-hour flight away.
Oh wow!
So, it's an up and downer.
Oh, that'd be lovely.
And there was a guy that I played with in California. It was from the 2 guys I played with, actually, both from New Zealand, who came in through when I was playing at Belmont Shore, and they came through, and one of them had turned down a Super Rugby contract when he was younger, because his thing was he was a dynamite back row player. They were both back row players, actually. But I remember talking to him. I was 23, and so I was quite young, and I had these aspirations to play for the U.S. and to sort of really run down that path. And he was like, there's so many leagues out there. I just want to travel the world and play rugby in some of these professional leagues. And people would just put him up in a place to live and give him a car and hang out. And he would travel to all these. He was played in Spain and Germany, right? Like he had been everywhere. And now he was stopping over in California, and he just used rugby as a vehicle to sort of see the world and sign professional contracts here, there, and everywhere, and some of these like remote places that we would never think of, right? That you just wouldn't be on our radar. What a cool story though, Matt. That's awesome, man. That's really cool. That's really fun.
I'm gonna take you back to the MLR, Manny, because I'm in Norse. Watching you guys this year, and you mentioned it before, you were like, oh, the change, the switch has been sort of semi-professional to sort of fully professional. Everyone's gone fully professional this year. I think you're probably the most frustrating team to watch. And this week against LA was more apparent than ever, because I randomly just said, you know what, I'm fed up of Mike always going on about bloody LA, saying how wonderful they are. And I thought, you know what, Seattle, if they're going to do it, they're going to do it against the best team at home. And I watched that game and I knew that LA would rest a few players and that sort of thing. But watching you guys was so frustrating. I mean, there were parts of that game where I thought, yeah, I think Seattle are going to win this. When it was like 21, I think it was like 20, it might have been 14-0, and you were banging on their door. You were like 5 meters out, and then suddenly you turned over the ball and they went 80, 90 meters and scored.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking that sums up your team and your season this year.
Yeah, that's kind of been where we're at, right? We're doing everything right until, you know, to use an analogy, you know, you chat a girl up, you get it to your front door and she walks away, right? That's pretty much where we've been, right? We bought drinks and haven't had, you know, any luck anywhere else.
I love the analogy.
But you know, it's very, very frustrating, right? We definitely should be winning more games than we are. You know, if I take a step back, obviously I'm frustrated as a player, but if I take a step back and look at it from a team and a growth point of view, I think we're going to grow a lot as not just the players on the field, but as a company as a whole going forward. I think we're going to, from an ownership point of view to facilities to whatever we do off field in the off season, I think we've really got to pick up what we're doing, right? Mm-hmm. And luckily our owners know that, right? We were under the impression that this season might not happen, right?
Yeah.
You know, and obviously being in Seattle, Washington State, it's very we're the last ones to take our masks off. Let's leave it that way. So that had an effect on the things, but again, we're losing games we shouldn't be losing, right? We can't blame personnel, we can't blame coaching. We're the guys out there, you know, and it's just something that's not clicking. Do I think the next couple of games it might click for us? I'm hoping so, but you know, we're very good at getting into the 22 and staying there.
Not quite crossing the whitewash.
Not crossing the line.
Right, exactly, yeah. I've been watching you, and the thing is, it's weird for us to look at the table and see Seattle towards the bottom, because obviously you're 2 double champs, but you're still a good rugby team, if you know what I mean. Like there's probably 3 or 4 games that you've lost in the last play. You know, you either had a kick to win it, or you were pressurizing their line, or someone was pressurizing yours and they scored. And winning sort of becomes a habit sometimes as well. And I feel that because you guys are in that transition phase of like, oh, you know, you probably got one eye on next season and you're just sort of like trying to get things back on track. You're sort of falling on the wrong side of those results. But tell us about like behind closed doors, because you mentioned the first 2 seasons were sort of semi-professional. Are you fully professional now? Are you training every day? What's your setup like?
We're very much the same setup as we've had in the past. You know, we're done by 12 o'clock. Guys at work, we do morning sessions only on field. So we off the field at 9 a.m. Boys that are so-called full-time go into the gym after that. Mm-hmm. But that's kind of where we are, right? A lot of guys that still work. We've got a lot of our guys do, you know, sort of manual labor work as well. So you know, the league can't pay everyone enough to, you know, as you know, in New York, to sustain a lifestyle for these guys. You know, you can't pay a guy 10, 15 grand for 6 months and expect him to feed his kids, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, that's my big frustration with the league is salary cap. But yeah, from our setup point of view, we're very much similar to year 1 and 2. We are looking to change that next season. They're looking at renting out and building our own sort of gym facility with a little astro at the back that we can use when the soccer's not using the fields, because that's our biggest thing here is actually getting time slots.
Yeah.
or training fields, everything gets booked up there. We get kicked off the field at 9:30 every morning by the under 16 Sounders development soccer team, right?
We know how that feels, Mikey. We know how that feels. We used to get kicked off at Randall's Island by the Frisbee team.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? It's like we're the only team at our facility that actually brings in an audience, a crowd, and we don't keep any concessions from the stadium, from the supporters, so we actually generate them income, and they still treat us like the bottom of the pile. So
got to earn those stripes. Got to earn
100%.
That's frustrating. Speaking of frustrating, I think it's worthwhile, and I don't know, Matt, I think you've been in the back office a little bit, sort of, right? So you're not only doing on-field stuff, you're doing a lot of off-field stuff too, if I'm not mistaken. You're involved in admin, right?
Yeah.
So you mentioned, and I know New York has struggled with this as well, but it was never something that I got involved in or knew much about. Ben, you may know more than I about this, but you mentioned having some visa problems, right? Like with visa issues with getting guys in. You hear that thrown around a lot in the MLR, right? Like you hear such and such team has visa problems for coaches or players. And I think for the average fan, they don't really know what that means. They just write it off like, oh, visa problems. Like, what does that actually mean? What kind of problems are you having? And what's that process like to bring foreign players in to play? What qualifications do they need? And if that's too much, I mean, I'm not trying to be too intrusive. I just think even for myself, right, I don't fully understand it either.
No, I mean, it's obviously, you've got to prove that you have a level of, you've played at the highest level within your country, right? And you have to correlate it to an American sport. So, Fode's playing for England, that's like playing for the Patriots in my mind, back in the day, So you got to kind of like sell rugby to the immigration office. The biggest problem we have with visas is the visas aren't signed to the clubs, right? They're signed to the league because everyone's centrally signed.
Yeah.
And the thing we're coming up to at the moment is as soon as you hit a threshold of an amount of visas to accompany to foreigners, they start questioning every visa that comes through. Why are you employing so many foreigners? So at the end of the day, it's not, sometimes it doesn't go down to players' qualifications, right? It goes down to just the fact that MLR has too many visas out there, right? Because, until the MLR shows it's making a profit, they're always going to question it.
Yeah. And they got 120 minimum every year. It's 10 a team that comes.
Yeah. So it's that's always going to be a hurdle. I mean, you look at JP Smith, the prop for LA, his twin brother, who's got just as many caps as him, gets denied, but his brother doesn't. And they're twins, right? So technically he could just come to the border and say it's his brother, but it's it's stuff like that. And then you get guys that aren't as qualified as them getting their visas. You haven't played Prem, they've just played like championship back home and they're getting their visas over here. And then guys that have premiership caps can't get here because there's not enough space within the company.
And there's coaches too, right? So it's not just players. There's coaches that are involved in this because I think many of the coaches in the league as well are also imports from other places and other areas.
Yeah, so the coaching one's an interesting one. So you used to be able to get a P1 visa as a coach, which basically you just had to prove that you've coached at a high enough level. But now you have to apply for an O1 visa. And the first stipulation with an O1 visa is, do you have international experience? So a lot of the coaches coming
as a player or as a coach?
As a coach.
Coach.
So a lot of the coaches have coached Super Rugby, that sort of stuff, right? So there's always so you then have to try and word it right that it's basically the equivalent of international rights. And that's why visas are getting denied, because one, the lawyers haven't done a good enough job, or you just don't meet the criteria.
Are these MLR lawyers or individual lawyers from each club? So like
I think a lot of clubs use the same guys because of track record and the understanding of the MLR itself. Because if you took out your own lawyer around this sort of stuff, they would have to do all the research, wouldn't have all the connections, etc., that you need done pretty quickly. But there's some great guys that do. John Billy did mine originally. He knows exactly what he's doing, right? He knows all the ways.
His name I've heard a lot, yeah.
Yeah, so they are the good guys. It's just sometimes guys just don't get approved. It's a matter of whose desk the petition lands on it's a lucky draw, right?
And is it also then a race each season? Like whichever team can kind of shuffle the most visas into the main office, the MLR first. Like if it's a numbers game, if Seattle's at the bottom pecking order, is that not a fair estimate or a fair assessment?
No, I mean I think it has got a play in it, but I think it's so random, right? How they do it. I think what is apparent is guys once they've got it once, they're pretty much guaranteed to get it again. So teams are going to start keeping the same foreigners because of the cost, and you're guaranteed to get them over here as well.
Yeah, you get it's a three-year visas, I think. The problem you have as well, though, with some of the visas is that you get guys over, and as Matty said, $15,000-$20,000 is not really enough to be living off. And if you only have an O1 or a P1 visa, you have to work in rugby, and that is it. You can't work in any other line or any other field. So that's the other problem. So that's why a lot of like the New Zealand guys are playing here, and then they're jumping back and playing in Mitre 10 to sort of fill up the bank accounts, but they'll bounce back because they still have the visa, because they've got a 3-year visa through, so they can come back and do the next season. So it's sort of like
in rugby though, is that just in the MLR, or can they coach a team that's here, and then like how does that work?
So P1 is just playing, right? With the P1 in the league, there's a workaround there. Your payroll goes through the league, right? Mm-hmm. So you could get paid as a player coach through your P1. But with an O1, you still have to stipulate where you're getting your contract and money from. Mm-hmm. So say for myself, I work for Tiger Rugby as well. So they can legally pay me because within my petition, I have them mentioned in my contracts.
Yeah.
So there's obviously workarounds, everything,
right.
Without throwing on any loopholes and getting deported. I'll leave it there.
Letting in some secrets.
I don't know if any immigration officers are listening to this.
So Matty, obviously I'm going to bring you back to playing and coaching. I asked you beforehand, but I'll ask you again on camera. What's the future look like for Matty Turner? Do you see your future being around MLR rugby for a while in the commercial department? You mentioned you got one more year of playing. Coaching, is coaching something you're looking at, whether it's in collegiate level, MLR level, even maybe one day the US?
To be honest, I can answer that pretty quickly. No. from a coaching point of view, like I love the game. I love where MLR is going. I am not the guy to take it to the level it needs to go to, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I feel I could help with community stuff, smaller stuff, but I wouldn't be the guy that's, I'm not passionate enough and driven enough to take MLR where it needs to go personally. And sorry, my little one's shouting.
I don't.
But for me, I love the commercial side. I love the chitter chatter. I love the networking side of it. That's kind of my transition is the commercial side after next season. And I love the growth of rugby in America from creating opportunities. Mm-hmm. That's why I'm involved with the World Tens. I think that's going to create more opportunities for growth of rugby in America. And it's just pairing up MLR and the World Tens to find a way of creating opportunities for guys, one that are playing MLR and one that guys are looking to play in MLR going forward.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Yeah. All right, Matty, I think we need to leave it there because we've kept you for long enough, and obviously your little one's calling for you to get back into family life. But I wish you all the best in the season, mate. You're obviously, a hell of a player and a legend of the game. Always love taking the field with you, seeing your smile on the face. I always think you play the game the right way. Yeah. Always enjoy it first, and then the success comes. You've won 2 MLR championships. You don't have to worry about the rest. Someone just searching.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Matt, thanks for bringing that wealth of experience that you have from everything you've done and bringing it to Seattle and bringing it to the MLR. I think it's done nothing but positive things for the sport and for the league here. So that's awesome, man. Thank you so much.
No, guys, thanks for having me on. It's been awesome to got a few more stories if you ever got more time, but I'll tell us over a beer with no camera.
There you go, mate. Perfect. Sounds good to me.
Hi, everyone. My name's Naya Tapper, and I play for the USA Women's Rugby Team, and welcome to the USA Rugby Clubhouse.
Right, guys, it's my pleasure to introduce our second guest of this evening. It's someone who has burst onto the scene, especially in the sevens, lighting it up. She is the second all-time try scorer for the US Eagle Women's Sevens team. It is none other than Naya Tapper. Naya, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
You are the first woman to come on the show, which is
oh wow.
We've been waiting for a while. We've talked about different people, and we're waiting to see which way we go. And then I said to you off the camera, my friend Connor Wallace-Sims, he's my go-to guy, and he said, "Listen, you got to get this girl on. She has been ripping it up, and she's one to watch." So brilliant to have you on the show. And let's just start by, obviously, rugby is sort of a big sport growing in America. It's sort of come onto the scene over the last 3 or 4 years. How did you get involved first and foremost?
So I learned about rugby in high school. I was running track, and we ended up having a rugby team there. My math teacher, who was the coach, was like, "Hey, you should try out for this." And I was like, "Okay, that'll be fun." And my track coach was like, "Absolutely not." I was just like, "Okay, whatever." Like, not knowing anything about rugby, it didn't really bother me. So kind of stuck with track for a while. And then when I got to college and decided to focus on academics, having done sports my whole life, I kind of started missing it and ran into the rugby tent, and they had a club team at my college in UNC Chapel Hill. And I didn't have to answer to anybody about if I should be able to play or not. So I kind of just made the decision myself to pick up the sport, and now I'm here.
That is an awesome story. So the thing is, we've had Carlin Isles on from the American, and you're a similar sort of caliber, like a crossover athlete. Someone's seen you on the track, obviously recognized your speed, and it's something they did with both Perry Bacon and Carlin Isles, and they went, you know what, you can use this. And I really feel that's something that's going to really play to the strengths of American rugby, whether it's in women's sevens, 15s, sevens, and men's 15s as well. Do you think there's a relatively good pathway for that crossover athlete to come into the sevens, especially the women's?
I think it's getting a lot better. Over these 5 years that I've been on the team, I've seen it grow and become a lot more clear. Whereas back then, they kind of picked up whoever they could find and tried to turn them into rugby players. Whereas now you have a lot of girls who have already played in middle school, who've already played in high school, who've been on a club team, and now are transitioning into the professional realm in a comfortable way. Back then, you kind of had to learn it on the whim. As Carlin sometimes talked about, he had to learn the sport in front of everybody in a year, whereas a lot of the girls and guys now already know how to pass. They already know the rules. They already know how to read the field. So I think based on the caliber that we have now at this level, you can already tell the growth is getting tremendously better.
And one thing I want to talk to you about as well is obviously, before speaking to you, I did an Instagram stalk, as you do. That's how you get to know everyone nowadays. And you have a good following. And one of the things I always want to talk to people about is like how social media and an online presence, do you see it as a good thing, a bad thing? Is it a good way to speak to fans, encourage young girls to take up the game? How do you see that platform working for you moving forward? Or is it, or do you use it for, partnering with brands or, with Nike or Adidas or companies like that? How do you see it going forward?
I think it's the best thing in the world. I feel like any athlete that is not tapped into the social media platform is definitely missing out on being able to reach fans all around the world, being able to spread word about their sport as fast as possible, and also being able to be in contact with potential brands and partnerships with people that they may look up to and not even realize I could work with that company. So social media is a platform that is creating so many opportunities, especially for a sport like rugby in the US, where it isn't as big as it can get, but it's already getting so big because of the awareness we've been able to give through social media. You have people like Carlin Isles, Perry Baker, Aleph Kelter, who have huge followings as rugby players. So the reach that we've been able to get with the sport has contributed a lot to the growth of the sport in the US.
Like you said, the biggest rugby stars in America at the moment
Yeah.
are very much the sevens guys, the likes of Perry
Yeah.
Baker. And the reason for that is obviously the Olympic Games. And I've noticed that you've been selected to go and play in the Olympics.
Yeah.
Talk us about your excitement of, first and foremost, of going to that competition, and also what are your chances of landing a nice gold medal to go with the collection behind you?
Yeah, super relieved, super excited. I've been working 5 years towards this goal that not many people in the world can say they've been able to be a part of. So even just being able to go there, not even thinking about the gold medal yet, that's an accomplishment in itself. That's the first hump that I'm very happy to get over. And then when we get there, I think just based on how we've been growing as a team on and off the field, and how we've been ranking these past couple of years and the growth that we've been able to show, I think we'll definitely be able to get on that medal stand and bring back the gold.
Woof, woof. I like it. I love it. One thing I love about the American sport as well, when you're there and you've been selected and you're in the moment, it's all laser focused. I want that.
Yeah, tunnel vision.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So obviously, sevens is your main priority at the moment. Obviously, you're in camp and with America. When you're not doing the sevens, are you playing 15s or are you playing just sevens? How is the 15s game, the women's 15s game in America at the moment?
Mm-hmm. When I'm not playing sevens, I'm usually on vacation because I mean, the seventh season is pretty long. It's from the end of August all the way to the beginning. We do get breaks in between, but in terms of being able to get into the 15s area, it is pretty tough with how lengthy our season is. But having played with the 15s girls earlier in my career and seeing a lot of the girls now on my team being able to get into those teams, I think their group is growing just as much as ours. The caliber of girls they're being able to pull in is getting a lot better, which I'm really happy to see. The financial support is way more important and beneficial now than it was in the past. As you know, a lot of teams can't do anything without money. So we need that type of support. So being able to see them getting out there using the social media platform to be able to fundraise and get the funds they need to be able to travel and play so that they can compete at the highest level and do well. I think that has been something that has been occurring and something I'm really happy to see. We can only go up from here.
Yeah, exactly. We're always building, everything's going forward. It's interesting you say that because there's obviously with the new MLR that started off only 4 years ago, but now is it? Yeah, 4 years it's been in the running. There's been talks already about each team creating a female team to support to run hand in hand. And I talked to a few people as well who actually believe, that the game of rugby could be bigger for women in America than for men, because there's a bit more. I heard it was, there's always a stat, and stats always change, but rugby apparently was the fastest growing sport in America, and it could still be for all I know. But I think that was primarily because of women and women's interest in the game, and obviously it being in the Olympics and that sort of thing. Do you think that the growth of rugby over here in America can sort of get to a point where there be a professional league that other international players from other countries would be interested to come to? Do you know what I mean? Like, because obviously when Mike Petrie's like the co-host, sadly can't be here, but he obviously, when he started playing rugby in America, he went off to Europe to go and get experience because that's where the best rugby was. And now the MLR's here, it's sort of changing a little bit, and we get Mar Nonu and Chris Robshaw's come over, and guys like that. Could you see that happening with the women if the MLR do back up what they're saying and start forming some professional women's teams?
Absolutely, because on top of the MLR, there's another professional rugby league for men and women with equal pay and opportunities that will provide the same thing that MLR is looking to do, of having a professional rugby league in the US for men and women and being able to pull in international players. On the women's side, we've been waiting for this for years, like being able to have that in the US to where, hey, if you can't make the national team or you're not ready to go to the national level, here's this opportunity that you can still be able to play some of the top players in the world and, increase the smoothness of that pathway to the top Olympic level. So I think we've been waiting for that a long time. I was actually talking to one of my friends from the England team on the women's side, and she asked me like, oh, you know, I heard there's a professional league coming out for women. Like, let me know the information on that, because I will be over there quickly on a flight. So that just shows you the interest already of, you know, that'll be super beneficial for us. Whatever opportunities that we can have, we're ready to take those.
Yeah, definitely. And so using that sort of to go forward, how healthy is sort of American rugby for women as it stands? Like right now, if you were to sit back and look, are you some way behind like the England? Because I know England do have a semi-professional, professional league running alongside the Premiership and stuff. Do you think that, you know, the quicker that we can get those teams, the quicker the professional league is built up, then the gap sort of smallens? And because obviously everyone always talks about American sports, and it's such a powerhouse because you have such an array of talent from, you know, girls playing lacrosse and, you know, football and track and field and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I know you talk about it a lot, about the crossover athletes, and because you are a crossover athlete and you're an advocate of trying to find more girls like yourself who, you know, do sports to a high level, and then, you know, they get to a point where they have nothing to do and they're like, oh, well, rugby is an opportunity now where you can make money and make a profession and go to the Olympics and do all these amazing things.
Yeah.
Do you think that, you know, where is America at the moment in terms of female rugby?
I think we're top ranked, honestly. If you look at every level of it, at the youngest level, around 5 to 8, you already have the girls rugby organization that is worldwide in this country, that is getting young 5 and 7-year-old girls passing the ball and playing rugby, basically. And then you go to the middle school level, it's the same. High school level, it's the same. And even at the college level, you have colleges like Dartmouth, Life University, Lindenwood, that have amazing women's rugby organizations. That's where we pull our girls from. If that is a depiction of how great women's rugby is in the US. And then you keep going, and eventually you'll start looking into the pro level that will hopefully come about very soon. And then even looking at the national level with us guys, with how far we've come and how much growth we've been able to have in the sport.
And so that's obviously as players, and you coming through that transition, you know, you said you started playing rugby when you were in high school, towards the end of high school.
Yeah,
and
first year of college.
Yeah, so first year of college. How was the coaching? Because that's another thing that people talk about as well. Because one thing when I came over to America is I met all the players, and, you know, we got into training and stuff, and their thirst and their knowledge of the game was good, and they were hungry to work hard. What I would say lacked was probably sort of like, you know, the coaching in essence, you know, someone who's been around the professional game for a long time. How is that with women's rugby? Do you have coaches coming from all over the world? Is there a good, you know, American sort of breed of coaches coming through? Is it female dominant? Is there men involved? How does the coaching look behind, you know, the top level of rugby in America?
Well, my first coach in college, he was an American coach, and some of my teammates back then are actually coaches right now. So being able to see them and pull in, as you said, an American breed of coaches is going to be amazing. Because at the moment, if you look at the national team, a lot of our coaches have either been from, well, most of them have been from New Zealand. I think Rick Suggett was Canadian. So a lot of our coaches aren't American. And that, that shows you that that's probably somewhere where we can have growth. And I think that growth is happening over this time, where we will start seeing a lot of American coaches, and it'll be good. And
do you think that, you know, obviously you said you've been around this game for 5 years now, and obviously there was girls there before you. Do you reckon there's a conveyor belt of girls who have been playing this game for a long time, who are thinking, you know what, I can see the potential of female rugby in America. I want to get into the coaching roles. I want to sort of use my experience of what I've learned and being around rugby and being in that professional environment and seeing all the new breed coming through as well, and having those sort of interactions can then, you know, use that as a stepping stone to then going into coaching. And obviously the opportunities are only going to grow in terms of those positions with rugby going the way it is. Has anyone you played with sort of looked at the coaching or even stepped into a bit of coaching?
A good amount of the 15s girls have gone into coaching for club teams, for universities like Dartmouth, as we talked about. There's a organization called the Rhino Academy that has a lot of us filtered through there through coaching. I know I've done some coaching under them, and our team as a whole gives us opportunities to coach, so that if that is something that you're interested in, they teach you how to do it, they work you through it. I think a lot of it becomes instinct as you play, and it's something that you want to do, even if it wasn't a thought 3 or 4 years ago. So I think a lot of us will definitely transition into coaching because a lot of us do want to stay involved in the sport after we're done playing.
That's awesome to hear. Awesome to hear. Okay, I want to know. So obviously, you joined rugby late. Do you watch rugby? Do you watch a lot of rugby?
Not really. I've never been into watching sports.
there's no right or wrong answer to this, because as a younger man, I never used to watch rugby. When I used to play my best rugby, I never was interested in it at all. And the older I got, the more of a nose I became. And now I watch rugby all the time. And I just help myself. So there's no right or wrong answer. I was just wondering, like, do you have any idols? Do you have any idols, whether it's in men or females? I know there's Portia Woods is like a bit of a legend in the Seven Circuit for New Zealand. For me, it was always like Jonah Lomu and someone like that. Do you ever watch any highlights on YouTube or Instagram or anything like that? If you say Colawalla Sims now, I'm going to terminate the interview.
Not that I can think of. I think probably the person I watched the most is Carlin Isles, just because, as you said, he was very similar to me and my situation. So it was nice to see him just burning everybody and having so much confidence in the player that he was, even though he had to start from square zero and build up to where he is now, which he's gotten really far. Same thing with Perry Baker. I love about him that he is super fast, but he didn't stop there. He does his chip kicks. He's a great passer. He's a great tackler. So being able to pick up all those skills, that's something that I had to learn over time, is that you can't just be fast. You got to be a lot more than that. On the girls' side, I think it would probably be Alev Kelter. She inspires me every day because she's just a sweet human being, but on the field, she's just a firecracker. And that's not somebody that you want to come in contact with on the field if you're not on her team. She definitely motivates us on the field to go hard and put our all out there, no matter how tough it gets. So that's probably one of the players that I look up to on a daily basis. She's amazing. She's, in my eyes, the best female rugby player in the world.
Awesome. Yeah. Do you keep an eye out on the MLR? Do you know the teams who are playing in it? Who would be your team if you had to pick a team to follow in the MLR?
I don't know many of the teams. The only team I really know, I know there's a team in Houston, and then the San Diego Legions. A lot of my teammates go and watch them, and some of my teammates have husbands on that team. So I know that much.
Corbs, So Corbs is obviously engaged. He's a good friend. He used to play with me. So Alex Corbs there was a teammate of mine in Northampton, and when we played for England back in the day. So, I forgot about that. Sorry, that's my child screaming.
No worries.
The reason I ask is because obviously I'm interested to know what your future looks like in terms of, obviously, you're very laser focused, Olympic Games, sevens and stuff. Is sevens going to be your, you think you're going to be predominantly, that's you nailed on bread and butter? Or, because I spoke to Carlin Isles about this, and obviously he's 777s, but he's got an interest now of coming to play in the MLR after the Olympic Games. Well, it's coming towards the end of his career in terms of like his age span to play this game. And obviously the MLR being created in America and having probably the most famous American rugby player in terms of people who know American rugby players in America, Carl Niles coming into the league would be a big thing. So if it did start sprouting, the female MLR team, so how would it be called? Like, I'm just guessing it'd be called like the W MLR.
Yeah.
Women Major League Rugby. Would that be something that interests you? Could that pull you away? Because I know you're dead set on the sevens and you love it, and you can see the smile on your face when you talk about it and stuff, and what I see on Instagram and all that sort of stuff. It's all very 7-7s. But could a female MLR entice you away at some point, do you feel?
I don't know. I don't want to say no, because you never know,
Yeah.
what you might end up being involved in the future. So I don't want to cancel it out of my destiny.
Mhm.
But as you said, like right now, I'm really focused on sevens. I love the aspect of the game, how fast it is, how much space it is. I think that benefits me with the type of player that I am. And I
Mhm.
feel like I would lose some of that in the MLR, but adaptability is an important thing we have learned over time. So if I do end up going in there and I have to change some things around, then that'll be okay.
Awesome. Awesome. I wanted to just chat to you a bit more about the Olympics. Have you been to the Olympics before?
I have not.
You have not. So this is your first time round.
Yeah.
How are you preparing for it? Because I said the same sort of thing to Carlin. They did the World Cup, the Olympic Games 4 or 5 years ago now, and obviously there was a lot of pressure on America to go and win a medal, and sadly they didn't.
Yeah.
And I was sort of saying to him this year, there's probably even more pressure on them as well, because if you guys, I think it's the same in women's and the same in men, if you guys go and win a medal at the Olympic Games, it will just boost the game of rugby,
100%.
not just the sevens, the 15s, the 10s, the female, the male, the kids. I just think it will be a massive boost.
Yeah.
Do you feel the pressure of that, of a pressure of a nation, a pressure of a sport on your shoulders? Or is it just like, I know, because you said before you're relieved because you've been selected, that's the main hurdle, and sort of like you're just ticking
Yeah.
boxes leading up to
Yeah.
stay fit now, make sure I'm in the starting shirt and ticking boxes,
Yeah.
or do things like that creep into your thought process of thinking, Jesus, if I do win a gold medal at the Olympic Games, I will be, especially someone like you, because you're a speedster, you're a bit different, you're a crossover athlete, they know that they've come from track and field, you're a good looking girl, you could be on a
Cover girl.
on a cover, exactly. You will be a pinup for rugby for females, and obviously rugby being a fast growing sport for females across America. Does that excite you? Do they creep into the dreams at night when you're lying there, tired from rugby, and you let yourself fall asleep and let your mind wander?
Definitely. I think kind of the main thought is just like, if we win gold, like we're just gonna blow up. And that's the goal. Like, we want to get as big as possible. We want as many people as possible to know about rugby, especially in the US. So we want it to be the next women's soccer, the next NFL, the next NBA, the biggest sport in the US. So if we go and win gold, we can do that.
Well, Naya, I'm going to finish it there because I believe in you, and I think you
Thank
believe in
you.
yourself as well. You have a big smile. I know that you're excited to get out there as well. So thank you very much for joining us on the Rugby Clubhouse. It's been a pleasure to chat to you, and hopefully we can catch up with you again, hopefully after you've got a nice gold medal sitting around your neck and you
That
can
would be
tell us about all the
fantastic.
celebrations.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sport has the power to change the world. It has the power to inspire. It has the power to unite people in a way that little else does. It speaks to youth in a language they understand. Sport can create hope where once there was only despair.
All right, Ben. After those two guests, I have to be honest. I feel a little bit left out. I'm the only non-sevens player amongst the group. My sevens career was done in 4 days before Hong Kong. I went to a camp when I was quite young, pulled my hamstring right before the squad left, and then my sevens career was never to be again after that. That was the end of my ride.
What's scary, Mikey, is you're probably the fittest one out of all of us.
But okay. I will say I was doing okay fitness wise with the sevens. When I went to that camp, I was feeling good, but my speed, Ben, just leaves a lot. It leaves a lot to be desired. Let's just leave it at that. I wasn't.
That's why you'd have to do much running, Mikey. That's where you be the link man. That's what me and Matty were talking about.
I still think the gates were broken. I still think the timing gates were broken. I don't know if they were working right when I stepped up. I think I might have offset them too early. I think my hand swing might have set it off, and I think that was what.
There you go.
Yeah, that was it.
Anyway, looking forward to this weekend's games. Only 4 games left, Mikey, and things are starting to roll out. I think most teams know their fate in terms of, we mentioned it, there's only sort of 3 teams in the running in the East and 3 teams in the West. I think it's quite a weird part of the season when you get here because, you know, what do you do when you're a DC or you're a Seattle or a Houston? What are you trying to do with these last games? Are you trying to build? Are you just trying to ruin someone else's playoff hopes? Do you sort of target games and say, this is our big game. This is where we're going to show the world we're better than we've been this season because they have a big game. How are teams not competing in the playoffs?
Well, I don't know. So here's the thing. I've heard this thrown around a lot when I was a kid, especially about, you know, when I was like, for instance, when I was a football fan when I was a kid, and if I was watching the Giants, right, and they were having a rough season, you'd be like, you almost hope they lose every game on the way out because then they would get a really good draft choice, right? They would end up getting a really good draft pick, and they could get a really great player who could come in and change everything for next season, and that never really works, right? Like that wasn't.
It didn't happen with the Jets this year, and then they went and won the last game and gave it to the Jaguars or something. Couldn't even do that right. Couldn't even lose when they're supposed to lose.
And the players are psyched, right? Because they're like, we won a game. I know the fans are like, you guys just wrecked the whole draft for us. But like, I don't know if that's how the Major League Rugby draft works. I don't know if it goes based on seedings from the previous year. And then with that in mind too, it's obviously the draft is still sort of a work in progress as well. Like, I don't know that there's that coveted number 1 spot that the way that there is in the draft, the way that there is in, you know, the NFL or the NBA or even the NHL for that matter, right? Like, I don't know that necessarily exists, but either way, it's you play for pride, right? I mean, you try to end the season on a high note because, as you and I both know, and I know that I've certainly been on my fair share of teams and at certain times throughout my life in different seasons where you're heading into it, you know, you're not going to make the postseason. But I'll tell you what, if you can at least end on a high, it makes the off season that much less of a drag, right? And then you feel a little bit like we can build momentum into next year, you know? And I think that would be something from a morale perspective that you'd want to latch onto is, you know, we're going to have a 6-7 month off season coming up soon. Let's ensure that, you know, we look back and when we start on day 1, we could be like, guys, we finished the season last year 3-0, right? That's at the end of the season. So
yeah, so it's planning for next year and sort of like saving face sort of thing. But yeah, definitely, I definitely feel that. And yeah, and then if you look at the other side of it, it's all about applying pressure to the guys that you're chasing. I think it's Austin who are doing the chasing and Nola are doing the chasing in the East Conference. Atlanta have the weekend off, so it's a chance for us and Nola to sort of make up those lost points. I think that Atlanta, if we win with 5 points this weekend, we'll be same points as Atlanta, and if Nola win, they will be 4 points behind both of us sitting at the top. So it will, you know, this weekend does have big consequences on what's going to happen, especially in the East Conference. Saying that, there's only 4 games. Our game is against Free Jacks, and we've seen they've had their winning record broken, but Nola have put that pressure on us to win. We've lost a few players. We mentioned that as well. A few internationals have gone. Hopefully some of our injured players are coming back into the thing. So it's going to be a big game. I think the game for us against Free Jacks is going to be a massive one. And one of the main reasons it's a massive one as well is Nola are playing in LA. So Nola need to get something from that game if they're going to put the pressure on us. You know, so this is going to be a very telling weekend for the Eastern Conference, I feel. So how do you see the New York going with the Free Jacks, and then you can move on and tell us what you think about NOLA and LA.
Ooh, I think you all are going to have a tough weekend in New England without many of your players that you're used to having. Mm-hmm. I do think that you will find a way to win in New England. I think there's too much on the line for you to not find a way to win in New England. But I do not think it's going to be an easy day for New York up there. I think it's going to be very, very tough day at the office for you all for sure. On the other side of that, I think NOLA has kept it interesting. I think that they are a team that has the grit, and they've shown the grit to pull out games that you and I certainly thought that they wouldn't have, and I'm sure many others felt the same way. I do think they're going to be without Cam Dolan this weekend coming up, right? He's away with the U.S. team. That's a huge loss for them.
Player of the week.
I'm not saying he's the only one that's part of that NOLA organization, but he's someone that I think we talked about. Seattle was building around Matt Turner. I think that, Cam's the type of player that they may be looking to build around in New Orleans for sure. And to not have him there, I think is going to be a bit too much against the team when you desperately would need him against the likes of LA. So I do think LA will win, and I do think that New York will win. I know I've picked both of those teams throughout the entire time, but they haven't often been wrong. So I'm gonna stick with the winning one. So.
Well, I listen, I'm praying for the same. Obviously, I think if we do win and NOLA slip up as well, that will sort of be the nail in the coffin for NOLA in terms of chasing us. But, NOLA they've been good on the road. They've been good on the road. They beat Free Jacks, who were not an easy place to go there last week. I think if LA come out all guns blazing with their big guns, with Gitto and Cooper and Meeks is playing and Ryberg and DTH, and the forwards are stacked as well, then LA win it. I think if they go with the similar team that they put out against Seattle, I think they'll struggle against NOLA. So I think it all depends on what LA are doing, what they're thinking. Are they resting guys? Have they got niggles? So, I think it could go either way. And I think that NOLA will put up a massive fight because they know the importance of this game if they do want to, qualify for the Eastern Finals. So I could see NOLA doing it. I hope they don't. I hope LA put out a full-fledged team and get the win. But I could see NOLA really causing a bit of a stir.
Well, they certainly have the past few weeks, that's for sure. At least in the New York locker room, they've caused a stir. I know that. That's probably the chat of you guys. So
there you go. The other two games are sort of nothing games. That's why I sort of mentioned it before, like in terms of what you're playing for now. Seattle at San Diego, two teams we don't often see at the bottom side of the Western Conference, but sadly we are this year. So we're not going to see any of those two in the finals. Do you want to call it?
Should we give it to Should we give San Diego a shot? Is it in, Seattle a shot? But is it in San Diego?
I went to Seattle last week and they didn't do it for me, so I'm going San Diego again.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna go San Diego as well. But that's crazy because that was the game. Like at the beginning of the season, that was one of the ones we talked about. Was the Seattle San Diego matchup
and now nobody cared.
The Titans, and now they're what a shame.
And then the same with old DC going to Toronto and playing down there in their third to last game of the season. And Toronto, they've lost everybody. I think
they brought in the 10 from last year that's played. So they have they do. I did see that they signed a decent number of players to come in and provide cover for them. I mean, they had to, right?
Yeah.
But
it'd be interesting. I could see DC winning at Toronto. I think Toronto have just had enough. Speaking to their guys after the game, and it must have been the longest season for that.
Oh, forget it. Yeah,
it's been awful.
I saw a thing on social media of Toronto getting packages from home, and just reading that they hadn't been home in however many months, and they were getting letters and little care packages of goodies from back up north that they can't get down in Atlanta. It makes you feel like sick to your stomach. Like, oh, that is awful. What a drag that would be.
At the same time, I'm not worried about Toronto's organization. Toronto will be back. They are a good team. They have good players. I love Rumble. I love Tricola on the wing. I love Ramirez. They've got good players. Lesage is a great player. They have a good organization, good players. This year's sucked for them, like more than anyone else. Like it's been awful being involved in that organization this year. But they got through it. They gritted their teeth. They won some games. They smashed us on a trip to New York.
That was their final. That was it. After that, they took that game then, and then that was it. They were done.
Exactly. So, hats off to them. I really respect Toronto, what they've been able to do this year, because it's been a tough all season for them. So they'll regrow, and obviously I'm looking forward to watching Canada play over in England as well. So eyes on that, and I think they're going to be an organization that will bounce back next year. Saying that, DC, I think DC will win. I think DC are, they're out of it as well, but they're looking to sort of end on a high, and they've got good players. And I think with Toronto having nothing to play for, just looking to get the season finished, all their players leaving, I think DC see this as a time to sort of just nick a cheeky win and like you said, finish the season on a high.
I'm going to go the opposite. I'm going to say that it's Toronto, just because they've got fresh people in. And sometimes when you get fresh people in, you get fresh attitudes, you get new opportunities, these are people that might be thinking, I could get it here. Here's my shot to get a long-term contract next year.
Yeah.
Let me put my hand up. And, when you have that sort of approach to it, maybe that will change things for them. So just because, like you said, I don't know, both teams don't have a lot to play for. I'm going to hang my hat on that. I think hopefully at least Toronto can hang their hat on that here's an opportunity for some other players to really step up and be noticed and maybe get themselves something for next year. But that's what I'm going with. I'm sticking to it.
And on that note, Mikey, we might as well wrap things up and say thank you very much for joining us here at the USA Rugby Clubhouse. And we will see you next week, as my daughter is calling me from the kitchen. Take care, guys.